Kiran was a quiet boy who lived in a small village at the edge of a great city. The village was peaceful, with green fields, clear rivers, and hills that seemed to touch the sky. Kiran loved his village and the people in it, though he sometimes dreamed of seeing more of the world beyond the hills. Kiran was known for being kind. He helped with chores at home and always offered a hand to anyone in need. If someone dropped something, Kiran would pick it up without a second thought. If someone needed advice, Kiran would listen, even if he didn't always have the answers. One warm afternoon, while Kiran was walking toward the river to fetch water, he noticed an old man struggling to carry heavy sacks. The man was hunched over, his face sweaty and tired from the weight. Kiran could see that the old man needed help. Without hesitation, Kiran rushed over to him. "Can I help you with those?" Kiran asked, his voice gentle but firm. The old man looked up, surprised. He hadn't expected anyone to stop and help him. "Thank you, young boy," the man said, his voice slow and deep. "These sacks are too heavy for me. I've been walking for hours." Kiran nodded and took one of the sacks. They walked together, with Kiran carrying one and the old man holding the other. As they walked through the village, the old man told Kiran stories of faraway places and adventures. Kiran listened carefully, his eyes wide with curiosity. When they reached the old man's small house, he invited Kiran inside. Though Kiran was eager to get back to his own chores, he couldn't turn down the old man's offer. They sat down to a simple meal of bread and cheese, and Kiran felt a warmth in his chest, not from the food, but from the kindness the old man had shown him. After the meal, the old man leaned forward, his face serious. "You are a good boy, Kiran," he said. "I have been sent by the king. The palace is looking for someone like you, someone who is kind and wise, someone who can help with a special task." Kiran blinked, unsure of what the man meant. "The king?" he repeated, confused. The old man nodded. "Yes, the palace has a problem, and they need someone with a good heart to help solve it. I have seen your kindness, and I believe you are the one they are looking for." The old man handed Kiran a thick envelope. "This is your invitation. You must go to the palace and meet the king. I believe you are ready for this challenge." Kiran's heart raced. He never thought someone from his village would be invited to the palace. But the old man was serious, and Kiran knew he couldn't ignore the chance to do something important. The next morning, Kiran stood holding the envelope in his hands, unsure of what to do. The idea of traveling to the palace felt both exciting and terrifying. He had never left his village, and the thought of entering such a grand place made him nervous. His friends gathered around him, excited for his journey, but also worried. "What if something happens to you at the palace?" they asked. "It's such a big, scary place." Kiran's mother, though proud, had tears in her eyes. "Kiran, my son, be careful. The world outside is different. Don't forget your roots. Always remember where you came from." Kiran gave his mother a reassuring smile. "I'll be careful, Mama. I'll come back and tell you everything." With the blessings of his family, Kiran set out. The road to the palace was long and filled with unfamiliar sights. He passed through crowded towns where people hurried about their business and saw grand buildings that were unlike anything in his village. By the time Kiran arrived at the palace gates, he felt small in comparison to the towering stone walls. The palace looked like something out of a dream. Tall towers reached up into the sky, and the air smelled of flowers and food. Guards stood at the gates, their armor shining in the sunlight. A servant led Kiran inside, past grand halls and intricate carvings on the walls. Everything seemed so different from his village, so grand, so busy. Kiran felt a little out of place, but he kept walking, determined to meet whoever had invited him. Kiran was taken to a large room where he was asked to wait. His heart beat fast as he sat on a cushion, unsure of what would happen next. He could hear the sounds of servants moving about in other parts of the palace. After what seemed like hours, the door to the room opened, and a woman entered. She was the princess, Princess Amara. Kiran had seen her face in paintings around the village, but seeing her in person was a different experience. She was elegant, with long black hair that cascaded down her back like a waterfall. Her eyes were dark and full of thought, and she looked at Kiran with a mix of curiosity and kindness. "Welcome, Kiran," she said, her voice calm and warm. "I've been waiting for you." Kiran stood up quickly, his eyes wide. "Your Highness, it is an honor to meet you." Amara smiled softly. "Please, just call me Amara. I'm not used to formalities. I asked for you to come because I need your help. The king, my father, has a task for someone who is wise, honest, and brave. And I believe that person is you." Kiran felt a rush of pride and excitement, but also fear. I don't know what to do. I'm just a simple boy from a village." Amara's eyes softened. "You are exactly what we need, Kiran. I need someone who can see the truth, who isn't swayed by power or status. There is a problem in the palace, and I need your help to solve it." Kiran nodded, still unsure, but eager to help. "What is the problem, Your Highness?" Amara looked around the room, as if searching for the right words. Things have been disappearing from the palace. Important items, jewels, clothes, even food. People are starting to talk, and I don't know who to trust. That's why I've asked for you. My father believes in your honesty. Kiran felt a strong sense of duty. This was no longer just about visiting the palace. It was about helping people. I will do my best, Your Highness, he said with determination. Later that day, Kiran was introduced to King Rajan, Amara's father. The king was a tall man with a beard that reached his chest and a deep, powerful voice. Despite his commanding appearance, the king had a gentle look in his eyes when he spoke to Kiran. I've heard about your good deeds, Kiran, King Rajan said. You've shown kindness and wisdom beyond your years. I believe you can help us. Kiran bowed his head respectfully. I'll do whatever I can, Your Majesty. The king smiled. Good. There is a problem in the palace, as my daughter has told you. We've been losing valuable items, and people are starting to distrust one another. I need someone who can find the truth, someone who can look past the rumors and see what is really happening. I believe you can do this. Kiran felt nervous, but he didn't let it show. I'll find out what's going on, Your Majesty. Very well, the king said, nodding. You'll have the help you need. But remember, this is not an easy task. It will test your courage, your heart, and your mind. Kiran began his investigation the next morning, talking to the palace servants and workers. Some were too busy to notice him, while others seemed nervous when he asked about the missing items. He noticed that certain parts of the palace seemed quieter than others, as if people were avoiding them. Princess Amara offered to help him. She showed Kiran around the palace, pointing out places where items had gone missing. As they walked together, Kiran couldn't help but notice the tension in the air. Something wasn't right. But what? Kiran made careful observations and began piecing together clues. It was clear that whoever was stealing the items knew the palace well. The thief was careful, always making sure to take things when no one was watching. As Kiran and Amara spent more time together, they developed a strong bond. Amara admired Kiran's calmness and insight, while Kiran admired Amara's kindness and intelligence. They worked together, each offering a different perspective on the problem. Kiran's investigation into the missing items continued. He knew the palace was filled with many people, servants, guards, and advisors, but he couldn't help but feel that there was someone within the palace who had a motive for taking the items. He paid close attention to everything and everyone around him. One afternoon, Kiran decided to visit the kitchens. He had heard that some food had gone missing recently, and the kitchen staff seemed worried. When Kiran arrived, he found the head cook, a large woman named Seema, stirring a pot of stew. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she looked as if she hadn't slept in days. "Is everything all right, Seema?" Kiran asked gently. Seema looked up at him, surprised. She smiled faintly, but quickly wiped her brow. "Oh, Kiran, it's been a hard week. So many things are missing from the pantry. Sugar, flour, even bread. It's as if someone is stealing right under our noses." Kiran frowned. "Do you have any idea who might be behind it?" Seema shook her head. "No, but we're all on edge. Some of the staff have been acting strangely, and others are afraid to speak out. The rumors are spreading like wildfire." Kiran thanked Seema and decided to visit the Royal Library next. It was a quiet place, full of books and scrolls, a place where the king often spent his time. The librarian, a middle-aged man named Rafi, greeted Kiran with a polite smile. "Is there something I can help you with, young master?" Rafi asked. "I'm looking for something unusual," Kiran said. "Some of the books and scrolls seem to have been moved. Do you know anything about that?" Rafi's face changed slightly. "Moved? No, I haven't seen anything like that." But Kiran noticed the unease in Rafi's eyes. He nodded, giving Rafi a reassuring smile. "I'll check again later. Thank you." As Kiran walked through the rows of books, his mind raced. There was something about Rafi's reaction that didn't sit right with him. Why would the librarian be so nervous about simple questions? Later that evening, Kiran decided to visit a different part of the palace, the servants' quarters. He had heard whispers from some of the workers that strange things had been happening, but no one would speak openly. Kiran entered one of the quiet hallways where the servants slept, hoping to speak with someone who might know more. He found a young maid named Leela sitting alone, her head down as she polished silverware. Her hands were trembling, and her eyes were wide with fear when she saw Kiran. "Leela, is everything all right?" Kiran asked. Leela looked up, startled. She hesitated before speaking. I don't know who to trust anymore. People are scared. Things are disappearing, and I think someone here is behind it." Kiran leaned in, his voice gentle. "Who do you think is taking the items?" Leela lowered her voice to a whisper. "I'm not sure, but I've seen Rafi talking to one of the king's advisors late at night. They meet in secret. I think they're planning something." Kiran's heart skipped a beat. The librarian and an advisor? This was more than just a simple theft. Kiran's mind was racing as he pieced together the information he had gathered. He now knew that Rafi, the librarian, and an advisor were somehow involved in the disappearances. but he didn't have enough proof to confront them yet. Kiran needed to catch them in the act. That night, after dinner, Kiran quietly made his way to the library. He knew that the palace was quiet at night, and many of the servants and workers would be asleep. The library was one of the few places still open, and Kiran hoped to find some answers. As he crept down the hallway, he saw the flickering light of a candle coming from beneath the library door. Kiran's heart beat faster. He slowly opened the door and stepped inside. To his surprise, Rafi was there, standing by one of the bookshelves, talking quietly with an advisor named Vikas. The two men were so focused on their conversation that they didn't notice Kiran entering the room. "I don't care about the king's orders anymore," Vikas was saying. "If we steal enough from the palace, we can make a fortune. No one will suspect us." Rafi nodded eagerly. "I've already taken several scrolls and some jewels. We can sell them in the market, and no one will ever know." Kiran's heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. This wasn't just petty theft. It was a conspiracy to destroy the king's reputation. Without thinking, Kiran stepped forward, his voice strong. "You've been stealing from the king, haven't you?" Both men turned to face him, their faces pale. "Kiran, what are you doing here?" Rafi stammered. "I heard everything," Kiran said, his eyes fierce. "You've been stealing from the palace, planning to frame others for your crimes." Vikas scowled and stepped forward, his hand reaching for a sword at his side. "You're making a big mistake, boy." But Kiran didn't back down. He took a step closer, his voice steady. "The king will hear of this. You won't get away with it." Vikas hesitated, and before he could make a move, Kiran quickly ran to the door and called for the guards. The next morning, Kiran presented the evidence to King Rajan. The king listened carefully as Kiran explained how he had caught Rafi and Vikas planning to steal from the palace. Kiran showed the king the stolen jewels and scrolls, proving their guilt. King Rajan's face hardened with anger as he heard the story. "I cannot believe this," the king said. "These men were trusted advisors, and yet they betrayed me." Kiran stood tall before the king. "I wanted to make sure the truth came out, Your Majesty. I couldn't let anyone ruin the palace's reputation." The king smiled at Kiran, his eyes filled with respect. "You have done more for me than I could ever have asked. You have shown courage and wisdom. For that, I reward you." King Rajan offered Kiran a position as an honorary palace advisor, with all the benefits and responsibilities that came with it. Kiran was overwhelmed with gratitude, but also unsure. He had never expected such an offer. "I'm honored, Your Majesty," Kiran said, "but my heart is with my village. I want to return home and continue helping my people." King Rajan nodded in understanding. "You are a true hero, Kiran. Your decision is respected, and you are always welcome here." Though Kiran was offered a prestigious role at the palace, his thoughts always returned to his village. He couldn't leave his family and friends behind. His heart belonged to the village that had raised him, and he knew he could do just as much good there. So, with a heavy but content heart, Kiran made his decision. He thanked King Rajan and Princess Amara for their trust, and he promised to return one day. The king respected Kiran's choice and sent him back to his village with gifts for his family and the people. Kiran returned to his village, greeted as a hero. He had saved the reputation of the royal family and solved a mystery that no one else could. But even as he settled back into his old life, Kiran remained close to Princess Amara and King Rajan. He visited the palace whenever he could, continuing to offer his wisdom and support. Years passed, and Kiran became known far and wide, not just as a simple village boy, but as a symbol of kindness, courage, and wisdom. His name was spoken with respect in both the palace and the village. Princess Amara remained a dear friend to Kiran, and the bond between them only grew stronger with time. The two of them would often talk, sharing stories and ideas, their friendship never fading. And so, Kiran lived out his life, continuing to help those around him, proving that even the smallest person can make a big difference when they have a kind heart and a brave spirit.